The first thing I noticed was not that my husband was gone. It was that he had taken the baby's birth certificate. At 3:17 in the morning, I stood in our dark hallway, holding my 6-week-old daughter against my chest, staring at the empty space where my husband's jacket usually hung. His shoes were gone, his car keys were gone, and on the kitchen table, beneath a cold cup of coffee, was a single envelope with my name written on it. Elara, don't look for me. You'll understand when the truth comes out. For 5 minutes, I couldn't move, because the man who wrote those words was not supposed to be the kind of person who ran away. My husband, Callum Vale, was the man who held my hand through 12 hours of labor, the man who cried when he first heard our daughter's heartbeat, the man who promised me, no matter what happens, I'll never leave you alone. But 6 weeks after our daughter was born, he disappeared. And the worst part? I had no idea if he abandoned us or if he was trying to protect us from something I didn't know existed. My name is Elara Whitmore. I was 32 years old when my entire life changed overnight. Before everything happened, my life was painfully ordinary. And I mean that in the best possible way. I worked as a graphic designer for a small publishing company. I loved quiet mornings, old bookstores, and making lists for things that didn't really need lists. Callum used to tease me about it. You're the only person I know who writes a grocery list and then writes a second list reminding herself where she put the first one. I would roll my eyes. And you're the only person I know who forgets his phone while holding it. He would smile and kiss my forehead. Those small moments were what I thought made a marriage strong. Not grand gestures, not expensive gifts, just two people laughing in the kitchen while pasta burned on the stove. But after our daughter, Ivy, was born, everything changed. Not immediately. At first, Callum was perfect. Almost too perfect. He woke up every night when Ivy cried. He learned how to change diapers faster than I did. He sang the same ridiculous song to her every morning, even though he couldn't carry a tune. You're creating a terrible musical environment for our daughter, I told him once. He looked offended. She already loves my voice. She's 6 days old. She also loves staring at the ceiling fan. He laughed, and for a moment I believed we had everything. A home, a family, a future. But then small things started happening. Things I ignored because I was exhausted. Because new mothers are tired. Because sometimes you convince yourself something is normal simply because you're afraid of what it might mean. The first strange thing happened when I found a hotel receipt in Callum's jacket. A hotel, 20 miles away, one night, 3 days before. I stared at the paper while Ivy slept in my arms. My first thought was obvious. He's cheating. The second thought came immediately after. No, not Callum. That was the problem. I knew him, or at least I thought I did. When he came home that evening, I placed the receipt on the counter. He froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. That tiny moment when his face changed. "What is this?" I asked. He looked at the receipt, then at me, then away. "It's nothing." Nothing. That word. I hated that word. Because people only say nothing when something is something. "Callum, why were you at a hotel?" He rubbed his face. "I had to meet someone." "Who?" Silence. A long one. Then you said, "Someone from my past." I felt my stomach tighten. "Your past?" He walked toward me. "Elara, please, I'm not cheating on you." "Then explain." "I can't." Those 4 words hurt more than any confession. Because suddenly, I was fighting against betrayal. I was fighting against a secret. And secrets grow in the dark. The next few weeks became strange. Callum started taking phone calls outside. He changed the password on his laptop. He began locking his office door. The man who once told me everything suddenly had a private world I documented to enter. And every time I asked, he became more distant. One night, after Ivy finally fell asleep, I found him sitting alone in the living room. The lights were off. He was staring at an old photograph. "What are you looking at?" I asked. He quickly put it away. "Nothing." Again, that word. I sat beside him. "Callum, what's happening?" He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Do you trust me?" The question surprised me, because it sounded less like a husband asking his wife and more like someone saying goodbye. "Yes," I whispered. He looked at me with sadness in his eyes, and then he said something I would remember forever. "I hope you still say that when you know everything." I wanted to ask what you meant. I wanted to demand answers. But Ivy started crying from the nursery. And by the time I came back, Callum had already left the room. 3 days later, he differentis. No argument, no warning, no goodbye. Just gone. At first, I convinced myself he would come back. People don't just abandon their family. Not Callum. Not the man who spent 2 hours assembling a crib because he refused to read the instructions. Not the man who cried when he held our daughter. But hours turned into a day. A day turned into 2. And then my fear turned into anger. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I texted him. Nothing. I called his brother Ronan. "Have you heard from Callum?" The silence on the other end made my heart sink. "Elara? What?" "Why are you asking me?" "Because he's missing." Another pause. Then Ronan said quietly, "He told me he might have to leave." I felt cold. "What do you mean, leave?" "I don't know." "You're his brother." "I know." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Because Ronan had always been protective of Callum. Too protective. Growing up, everyone joked that Ronan would cover for his brother even if he committed a crime. But then he said something that made me forget how angry I was. He was scared. I looked at Ivy sleeping in her crib. Scared of what? Ronan didn't answer, and that scared me more. That night, while searching through Callum's desk for any clue, I found something hidden beneath a stack of old documents. A photograph, a woman, a little girl, and Callum standing beside them. My hands started shaking, because the woman wasn't me, and the little girl looked about 5 years old. On the back of the photo, there was a date, 8 years earlier, before I met him. Below the date were 3 words written in Callum's handwriting. I failed you. I sat on the floor for almost an hour. My mind raced through every possibility. Was Callum living another life? Did he have another family? Was Ivy not the first child he had abandoned? The man I loved suddenly became a stranger. But then I noticed something else. Something that didn't fit. The woman in the photo wasn't smiling. She wasn't posing. She looked terrified. And beside her, young Callum didn't look happy either. He looked like someone who was trying to save someone, not someone who was hiding a secret. That was when I realized something terrifying. Maybe I had been asking the wrong question. Maybe the question wasn't, why did my husband leave me? Maybe the question was, what was my husband running away from? And the answer was waiting for me in the locked drawer of his desk. A drawer I had never opened before, because I had never imagined that the man I trusted most had been hiding a secret that started long before I ever met him. I stared at the locked drawer for almost an hour. The photograph was still in my hand. A woman I had never seen. A little girl I didn't know. And my husband standing beside them with the words, I failed you, written on the back. The easy explanation would have been the one my fear wanted to believe. Callum had another family. Callum had lied to me. Callum was a completely different person. But something inside me refused to accept it. Because the man in that photograph didn't look like a man celebrating a secret life. He looked broken, like someone carrying a weight he couldn't put down. And that terrified me more. Because betrayal is painful, but discovering that the person you love is suffering in silence is something completely different. I wiped my eyes, placed Ivy in her crib, and walked back to Callum's office. The drawer was still locked, and for the first time in 7 years of marriage, I felt like I had permission to break a promise I never made. Callum always said one thing about privacy. Everyone deserves one place where they can keep their thoughts. I believed him. I never checked his phone. I never searched his things. I thought trust meant choosing not to look. But standing there, alone with a newborn baby and a missing husband, I realized something. Trust only works when both people are telling the truth. I took a small screwdriver from the kitchen. My hands were shaking. Not because I was afraid of what I would find, because deep down, I was afraid I would find nothing. that maybe the man I loved had simply left because he wanted to. The lock broke after a few seconds. Inside the drawer were 3 things: a worn out envelope, a hospital bracelet, and a letter. The bracelet made my heart stop because it had a name printed on it. Lena Vale. Vale, my husband's last name. I turned the bracelet over. A date was written underneath. 8 years ago, the same year as the photograph. I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of documents, and the first page changed everything. It wasn't a marriage certificate. It wasn't a child's birth record. It was a court document, a custody agreement. My eyes moved across the page, and then I saw the name: Lena Vale, a daughter. Callum had a daughter, but she wasn't a secret child. Not exactly, because the next page explained something I never expected. Lena had been placed into temporary care after an accident involving Callum. I stopped breathing. The next morning, I called the only person who might know the truth: Callum's brother, Ronan. He answered after 3 rings. Elara, why didn't you tell me about Lena? Silence. A terrible, heavy silence. And that was my answer. You knew. Elara, you knew my husband had a daughter. Listen to me. No, you listen to me. I have been sitting here with a newborn baby, wondering if my husband abandoned us while you knew something this important? His voice became softer. I didn't know if I had the right. You didn't have the right to protect him from me. I was protecting you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protecting me? Yes. From what? Another pause. Then Ronan said, from the truth. Those 3 words felt heavier than anything else. Tell me. I can't. Why? Because Callum made me promise. I looked at Ivy sleeping peacefully beside me. My daughter had no idea her entire family history was falling apart. Ronan, my husband, disappeared. I know. You know? His breathing changed, and I realized something. Ronan wasn't surprised. He was expecting it. How long did he plan this? He didn't plan leaving. Then why did he? Ronan whispered. Because someone found him. My blood ran cold. Who? I don't know. You're lying. I'm not. Ronan, someone doesn't disappear from their family because they're scared of an old mistake. He didn't answer. And that silence told me I was closer to the truth than he wanted me to be. That afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I expected Ronan, maybe a neighbor, maybe even Callum. But it wasn't any of them. It was a woman. She looked around 40. Dark hair, tired eyes, And the moment she saw me holding Ivy, her expression changed, like she had been preparing for this moment. "Are you Elara Whitmore?" I tightened my grip on the baby. "Yes." "My name is Mara Voss." The name meant nothing until she said the next sentence. "I was Lena's mother." My heart dropped. The woman from the photograph. Callum's past had just walked onto my doorstep. "What do you want?" She looked down. "I need to know if Callum told you the truth." I almost laughed. "The truth? My husband disappeared." Her face changed. "He left?" "Yes." Mara closed her eyes, and for a moment she looked genuinely afraid. "That means he knows." "Knows what?" She looked at Ivy, then back at me. "Did he leave anything for you?" I thought about the letter, the photograph, the locked drawer. "No." She swallowed. "Elara, if Callum left without explaining, it wasn't because he stopped loving you." I stepped closer. "Then why?" Her voice became quiet. "Because 8 years ago, Callum didn't destroy my family." I waited, but he took the blame for someone else. For the first time, the story I created in my head started breaking apart. Maybe Callum wasn't the villain. Maybe he was protecting someone. But that created an even bigger question. Who? Mara sat at my kitchen table. She looked at the family photos on the wall. "You really loved him." I looked at her. "What kind of question is that?" "Because he talked about you." My heart stopped. "He talked about me?" "All the time." "When?" "Before he disappeared." I stared at her. That made no sense. "He knew he was leaving?" Mara looked away. "He thought he might have to." "Why?" She reached into her bag and placed something on the table. A photograph. But this one was different. It showed Callum, Ronan, and another man. A man I had never seen before. The three of them stood outside a courthouse. On the back of the picture was a message, not written by Callum, written by someone else. 4 words. "You owe me everything." I looked at Mara. "Who is that man?" Her face became pale. "His name is Adrian Vale." "Vale?" She nodded. "He's Callum's father." I felt confused. "Callum told me his father died years ago." Mara looked at me, and the expression on her face made my entire body go cold. "Your husband told you that because he wanted you to stay away from him." "Why?" "Because Adrian isn't dead." That night, after Mara left, I sat in the nursery holding Ivy. I looked at my daughter's tiny hands, and I thought about Callum, the man who disappeared, the man who lied, the man who might have been protecting me. My phone suddenly vibrated. Unknown number. 1 message. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. "Elara, don't trust Mara. She's the reason Callum left." A second message appeared. "If you want your husband back, don't ask questions. just leave. I stared at the screen because now I had two completely different stories. Mara said Callum was protecting me. The mysterious sender said Mara was dangerous. And somewhere between those two truths was my missing husband. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Callum? There was silence. Then a weak voice whispered, Elara. I grabbed the phone with both hands. Where are you? A long pause. Then he said, I'm sorry. My eyes filled with tears. Why did you leave us? His voice cracked, and the next words destroyed everything I thought I knew. Because if I stayed, he whispered, they would have taken Ivy. The call ended, and for the first time since my husband disappeared, I wasn't wondering why he left. I was wondering who was trying to take my daughter. The call ended before I could say another word. I stood in the nursery, frozen, staring at my phone. For 6 days, I had imagined every possible reason why my husband disappeared. Maybe he was cheating. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he regretted becoming a father. But I never imagined this. Someone wanted to take my daughter. I looked at Ivy sleeping in her crib, her tiny fingers wrapped around the edge of her blanket, so peaceful, so unaware. And suddenly, every strange thing Callum had done made sense. The locked laptop, the secret phone calls, the fear in his eyes when I asked about his past. He wasn't hiding another woman. He was hiding a threat. But one question kept repeating in my mind. If Callum was trying to protect us, why did he leave us alone? Why didn't he trust me enough to tell me the truth? The next morning, I went back to the photograph Mara gave me. Adrian Vale, Callum's father, the man everyone believed was dead. I searched through old documents in Callum's drawer until I found something hidden beneath the court papers. A newspaper article, 8 years old. The headline made my hands go cold. Local businessman accused after fatal accident. Witness disappears. The businessman's name? Adrian Vale. The article explained that Adrian had been involved in a car accident that left one person injured and another missing. The missing person was a woman, Mara Voss. But that wasn't the part that shocked me. The witness was listed as Callum Vale. My husband had seen everything, and then he lied about it. I called Mara. She answered immediately, like she had been waiting. You found it. You knew I would. Yes. Tell me everything. There was a long silence. Then she said, 8 years ago, Callum was 27. He worked for his father's company. Adrian wasn't just his father. He controlled everything in Callum's life. Controlled? Money, career, relationships, everything. I looked at Ivy. Then what happened? Adrian caused the accident. My breathing stopped. What accident? The night Lena was injured. The little girl from the photograph. Mara continued. Lena wasn't Callum's daughter. I closed my eyes. I had expected many things, but not that. She was my daughter, Mara said. Callum was helping me escape Adrian. Why? Because Adrian had been hiding illegal things inside his company. Callum found out. The pieces started connecting. The accident wasn't an accident. I gripped the phone. So why did Callum take the blame? Mara's voice became quiet. Because Adrian threatened Lena. A cold feeling moved through me. He told Callum that if he went to the police, Lena would disappear. So Callum protected her? Yes. But why leave me? Mara didn't answer immediately, and somehow that scared me more. Because Adrian found out about Ivy. That afternoon, Ronan came to my house. The moment he walked inside, I knew he was exhausted, like he had been carrying this secret for years. You knew Adrian was alive. He didn't deny it. Yes. You knew he was dangerous. Yes. And you let me think my husband abandoned me? Ronan looked down. I thought Callum had a plan. A plan? He wanted to take Adrian away from you. I laughed bitterly. He took himself away from us. Ronan looked at Ivy, and for the first time I saw something different in his face. Regret. I made mistakes too. I didn't answer. My weakness has always been protecting my family, even when they're wrong. That was the first honest thing he had said. You protected Callum. Yes. And now? Now I think I helped him carry a burden he shouldn't have carried alone. That evening my phone rang again. This time it was Callum. I answered immediately. Where are you? I can't tell you. Callum, I am done being protected from the truth. Silence. Then, I know. His voice sounded broken. Do you know what it felt like waking up every morning and wondering if you hated me? I closed my eyes. Do you know what it felt like thinking you abandoned us? I know. No, you don't. A long pause. Then he whispered, You're right. That answer hurt more than an excuse would have, because he finally admitted it. I should have trusted you. Yes. But I was afraid. Of Adrian? No. I froze. Then who? Of becoming like him. I didn't understand. Callum. My whole life I watched my father control people, hurt people, make everyone afraid. His voice cracked. When I found out about his crimes, I wanted to destroy him. And I realized I was starting to make choices like him. I sat down. He threatened Ivy? Yes. How? He found out I had evidence against him. He told me he would take everything from me. Why didn't you tell the police? Because Adrian had people everywhere, and because... He stopped. Because what? Because he knew something about me. My heart sank. What? Callum took a breath. The accident 8 years ago wasn't only Adrian's fault. The silence that followed felt endless. What are you saying? I was driving. My hand covered my mouth. What? That night, Adrian forced me to follow him. He wanted me to scare Mara into silence. I lost control of the car. I couldn't speak. Lena got hurt because of me. But you saved her. I couldn't save everyone. His voice broke. And suddenly I understood. Callum wasn't running from Adrian. He was running from himself. The next day, Callum finally came home. But he didn't walk through the door like a hero. He walked in like a man ready to accept whatever happened. Ivy was sleeping. We stood in the kitchen where we used to laugh together, the same place where our life had felt perfect. You should have told me, I said. I know. You should have trusted me. I know. You hurt me. His eyes filled with tears. I know. For the first time, I saw him without secrets, not as a husband, not as a father, just as a person who had spent 8 years punishing himself. Then the doorbell rang. Both of us froze. Ronan looked through the window, and his face changed. It's Adrian. Adrian Vale stood outside like he owned the world, because people like him always believe they do. Callum stepped forward. No! I grabbed his arm. No more secrets! He looked at me, and I nodded. We face this together. The police arrived 20 minutes later, because before coming home, Callum had sent them every piece of evidence he had collected. The messages, the documents, the recordings, everything. Adrian wasn't arrested because of one mistake. He was arrested because years of lies finally collapsed under the weight of the truth. Months later, our lives were different. Not perfect, different. Callum still struggled with guilt. I still struggled with trust. Some wounds don't disappear because someone says sorry. But every night, when Ivy laughed in his arms, I remembered something. The man who left us had hurt us, but the man who came back was finally ready to stop hiding. Mara and Lena moved away. Ronan finally admitted he needed help carrying his own guilt. And Callum learned the hardest lesson of all. Protecting someone by shutting them out is still a way of hurting them. Sometimes the biggest betrayals are not caused by people who stop loving us. Sometimes they come from people who love us so much that they believe they have to suffer alone. But love cannot survive behind locked doors and hidden truths. The strongest families are not the ones without secrets. They are the ones brave enough to face them together. What would you have done if you were Elara? Would you forgive Callum after everything he hid? Or would leaving without explanation be something impossible to forget? Share your opinion in the comments. I'd love to know how you would have handled this situation.